The story begins with a family that hasn't spoken a single word for the past 10 years. Why? Because a decade ago, a deadly meteor crashed from space, bringing with it terrifying alien creatures that almost wiped out humanity. These monsters were so horrifying that they could hear a human's heartbeat from a mile away. And in an instant, they'd strike like death itself. While scavenging quietly for food in an abandoned store, the family moved carefully, without making a sound. But then, the youngest boy, Bo, spotted a toy rocket. As he picked it up, it slipped from his hands and hit the floor. Everyone froze in fear. But his sister Reagan, who couldn't speak, swiftly caught the toy, saving everyone from disaster. But death never gives up, does it? It always waits for one small mistake. The family's leader was Lee, along with his wife Evelyn and their 3 children, Reagan, Marcus, and the little one. Bo's innocence often turned into danger, as his curiosity could easily cost them their lives. After gathering supplies, they started their silent walk back home. Reagan, feeling sorry for Bo, secretly gave him the rocket he wanted so badly. What she didn't know was that Bo had also taken the batteries that Lee had removed earlier, because he knew any sound from that toy meant certain death. They walked barefoot on a trail made of sand, carefully laid out to silence their steps, but they had no idea that death was following right behind them. Bo, overjoyed, inserted the batteries into his toy. The rocket suddenly made a loud beeping sound. Reagan couldn't hear it, but Lee and Evelyn froze in terror. The next moment, the eerie silence of the forest shattered. A creature rushed toward Bo at lightning speed. Lee sprinted with all his strength, but the monster was faster than a bullet, and within seconds, Bo was gone. A year passed. The family had learned to survive in this silent, deadly world. Lee had converted part of their home into a research room, collecting every bit of information about these creatures. He discovered that they could detect the faintest sound from miles away. They were completely blind. Their sense of hearing was so sharp, even the slightest breath or vibration in the air could draw them instantly, killing anyone within seconds. Their skin was stronger than steel, making them immune to bullets or normal weapons. These creatures had come to Earth a year ago through a meteor shower, spreading across the planet at an unbelievable speed, erasing nearly all traces of human life. The only way to survive was to stay absolutely silent, a rule that Lee's family had mastered. Lee had installed CCTV cameras all around their home to detect approaching monsters. He even marked safe spots on the floor to step on, ensuring no noise was made. Deep underground, he built a bunker where he studied the creatures and found that 3 of them roamed the nearby area. He constantly sent out radio signals, hoping someone else had survived. So far, no response. Meanwhile, Evelyn was pregnant and expecting a baby soon, which made things even more dangerous. A crying newborn would attract instant death. So they built a soundproof box for the baby, complete with an oxygen mask, to keep it silent when it cried. In a world where even a whisper could kill, preparation was everything. But Reagan's deafness made her even more vulnerable. Lee tried hard to fix that, creating a new cochlear hearing amplifier for her. When he gave it to her, Reagan wasn't happy. She had lost faith after so many failed attempts. Still, she decided to test it, and to her surprise, it was. Hearing the world again for the first time, Reagan's eyes filled with tears of joy. Hearing those new sounds, Reagan breaks down. Tears flow as memories of her little brother flood back. Even now, she blames herself for his death. She believes that if she hadn't given him that toy rocket that day, he would still be alive. Determined to prove herself useful, Reagan wants to help her father with his work and heads toward the underground bunker. Lee stops her, refusing to let her go inside. A year earlier, it was Reagan's mistake with the toy rocket that cost them so much. Now, Lee cannot trust her near anything that might make noise. He's terrified that if Reagan accidentally touches a microphone, a radio, or any buzzing device in the bunker, even a small sound could doom them all. Next morning, Lee and Marcus set out to fish by the river. Reagan begs to come along, pleading, "Take me with you, please." Lee refuses again, saying their mother is alone at home and she must stay to look after her. Hurt and feeling unloved, Reagan packs a bag and slits away toward the place where her brother died. She lies down beside his grave and weeps, Exhausted, she falls asleep there. At home, Evelyn is alone, sorting laundry in the basement and stuffing it into a sack. A nail, fixed on the stairs, catches the bag and straightens up. It was placed right on the floor mark where they step. Evelyn doesn't notice. Meanwhile, Lee and Marcus are by the river. Lee leads Marcus to a waterfall and tells him, "You can speak freely here. The rushing water will hide your voice from those monsters." They sit and talk. Marcus asks whether Lee blames Regan for Bo's death. Lee answers that no one was at fault. Marcus tells Lee that Regan still feels guilty, and he urges Lee to tell her the truth. Nothing he did caused Bo to die. Back at home, Evelyn stares at a photo of their dead daughter and tears fall. Suddenly, she feels the first pangs of labor. The baby is coming. Clutching the picture frame, she hobbles toward the basement, hurried and in pain. In her rush, her foot slips on that exposed nail. She screams silently, biting her lip, because she knows any noise is an invitation to death. The photo frame slips from her hands, crashing to the floor with a loud shatter. Evelyn drags her wounded foot free, and though her face flushes with pain, she forces herself to make no sound. She limps on, flicks a switch that floods the house with red lights, then moves to hide. But as she looks up, her breath catches. The monster has already reached the house. The frame's crash alerted it. Terrified, Evelyn presses herself against the wall and trembles while the creature prowls, hunting every corner. In the river, Lee and Marcus see the house bathed in red warning light. He knows immediately something is wrong. Evelyn is in danger. Sprints back toward home. In the basement, Evelyn finds a small timer. Thinking quickly, she sets it for a few seconds, places it in one corner, then races to hide in another. The timer's alarm will sound and draw the monster away. She steels herself, even while labor pains grip her. The alarm blares. The monster bolts toward the noise. Seizing the chance, Evelyn slips out of the underground and heads for the main door. But another monster patrols the yard. She presses herself against the outer wall, flattened and silent. From a distance, Lee and Marcus watch the scene unfold. Lee realizes the truth in a single terrible thought. If he tries to rush in to save Evelyn, both of them might die, staying or going. Either choice could end their lives. So Lee decided to execute a plan he had already prepared in advance. He quickly handed Marcus a torch and told him to fire the flare rockets they had set up far from the house earlier. Marcus immediately ran toward the rockets. Meanwhile, Evelyn was upstairs in the bathtub in terrible pain. She could no longer hold back. She was about to give birth. The monster, drawn by the faint sounds of her sobs, was now dangerously close to the bathroom. Evelyn realized that survival was no longer possible. Just then, Marcus fired the rockets. Bright flares exploded into the sky with loud cracks. Hearing the noise, the monster turned away from Evelyn and rushed toward the sound. At that exact moment, Evelyn, unable to bear the pain any longer, screamed, but her cry was drowned out by the thunderous noise of the rockets. From afar, Regan also saw the bright lights and immediately began heading home. A few moments later, Lee entered the house with a gun. He noticed bloody footprints on the stairs and followed the trail to the bathroom. When he got there, he saw the bathtub filled with blood. He feared the worst and broke down, thinking Evelyn was dead. But then, he saw a hand press against the shower door. It was Evelyn, alive. Against all odds, she had managed to give birth to a baby boy. Lee was stunned but relieved. Before the baby could start crying, Lee quickly picked up Evelyn and the newborn and rushed them to the underground shelter. In the basement, they had built a soundproof box for the baby. But before they could enter, the baby began crying. The monster heard it. Lee hurried inside and blocked the door with a thick mattress. He placed an oxygen mask over the baby's mouth and sealed him inside the box, muffling the sound completely. Only then could they finally breathe in relief. Lee then told Evelyn that he had discovered the creature's weakness and was working on a device that could help them fight back soon. Meanwhile, Regan was walking back home when she noticed a faint light in the fields. She started moving toward it, unaware that a monster was stalking her, following the sound of her footsteps. Just as it was about to attack, Her hearing device emitted a sharp, high-pitched frequency. Sound was so intense that the monster began writhing in pain, as if needles were stabbing its ears. Unable to bear it, the creature fled into the distance. Sound also hurt Reagan's ears, but as soon as the monster ran away, pain stopped. She didn't understand what had happened and ignored it, continuing toward the light. When she reached it, she realized it was just a torch. As she bent down to pick it up, someone suddenly grabbed her hand. It was Marcus, trembling with fear, but relieved to see his sister. He told her he had been hiding nearby, watching her, and that a monster had been following her, but for some reason, it suddenly ran away when it got close. Hearing this, Reagan was terrified. She hadn't even realized she was being hunted. Meanwhile, Evelyn was deeply worried about her children. She begged Lee to go find them, fearing the monsters had already reached them. Lee laid Evelyn and the baby safely in the underground room and went out to search. The house was wrecked, and a water pipe had burst, flooding the basement. But Lee didn't notice. He hurried outside, scanning the fields for any sign of the kids. At the same time, Marcus and Regan were hiding on top of a grain silo. They lit a fire, hoping their father would see the smoke and find them. Back in the basement, the sound of rushing water woke Evelyn. To her horror, the entire room was filling up. Water was pouring in like a waterfall. She looked toward the baby's soundproof box. It was open, and there was no sound from inside. Panicking, she moved toward it, but suddenly a monster emerged right in front of her. Evelyn froze in terror when she saw a monster standing right in front of her near the baby's box. Her heart sank. She feared the creature had already devoured her child. The box was visible, but it was too far away for her to see inside. She couldn't tell whether her baby was still alive or not. Slowly and quietly, she began to move toward it. The monster stepped into the flooded basement water, its movements slow but menacing. Evelyn's breath quickened as she reached the box, and to her relief, her baby was alive. Luckily, the child hadn't made a single sound, which had saved his life. She carefully lifted her baby and hid in a corner, trembling but silent. The monster was still close, circling like death itself. One wrong move, or even the faintest cry from the baby, could mean the end for both of them. Meanwhile, Regan and Marcus were waiting for their father but had lost all hope. Regan believed he wasn't coming back and decided to head home alone. Marcus, however, still had faith in his father. When he tried to stop Regan from leaving, he accidentally slipped. The hatch of the grain silo opened and he fell inside. As he fell, Marcus let out a loud scream. The noise immediately caught the attention of the monster that had been searching for Evelyn in the house. It turned and raced toward the sound, leaving Evelyn safe for the moment, but putting Marcus in grave danger. Inside the silo, Marcus was sinking fast. The grain acted like quicksand. The more he struggled, the deeper he went. Regan desperately broke open the hatch and jumped in after him. Just as Marcus was about to be swallowed by the grain, Regan grabbed him and pulled him up. They climbed onto the metal door floating on top of the grain, barely escaping death. But their movement had made noise, and the monster was already racing through the fields toward them. From a distance, Lee saw the creature heading to the silo and instantly realized his children were there. Regan had saved Marcus's life, but it seemed hopeless. The monster was closing in fast. Within seconds, it jumped into the silo, thrashing violently as it hunted them. Just then, Regan's hearing device emitted that same sharp, high-frequency noise. The sound pierced the monster's ears, making it scream and thrash in agony before retreating. Regan and Marcus had narrowly escaped death once again and climbed out of the silo. Outside, Lee finally reached them. Seeing his children alive filled him with relief and joy. Back at the house, Evelyn was watching everything unfold through the CCTV monitors. But Lee quickly realized the danger wasn't over. The monster was still nearby. He told his children to run toward the nearby truck while he grabbed an axe and scanned the area. Suddenly, the creature pounced from above. Before Lee could react, it slashed him with its claws, throwing him violently to the ground. Seeing his father hurt, Marcus shouted in panic, and that one sound gave away their position. The monster turned toward the kids and began advancing again. Regan's hearing aids suddenly started emitting the painful frequency once more. The sound hurt her ears, so she instinctively turned it off. A terrible mistake. That frequency was the creature's weakness, the one thing it couldn't stand. Without it, they were defenseless. The monster leapt onto the truck, clawing its way toward Marcus. At that moment, Lee regained consciousness. He saw his children trapped and knew there was only one way to save them. He looked at Reagan and through gestures told her, "I love you. I never blamed you for Bo's death. You are my world." Then, gathering all his strength, Lee screamed at the top of his lungs. The monster immediately lunged at him, tearing him apart in one brutal strike. Regan watched helplessly as her father was killed. The man she had thought didn't love her had just sacrificed his life to save them. After killing Lee, the monster ran off. Evelyn, who had seen everything on the CCTV monitor, was heartbroken. Moments later, Regan started the truck and drove back home with Marcus. When they arrived, Evelyn hugged her children tightly, relieved they were alive. But their relief didn't last. The monster had followed them. It was coming for them again. They rushed inside the house, where Marcus and Regan saw their newborn brother for the first time. Regan noticed her father's notes and experiments on the cochlear implant, realizing how hard he had worked to help her hear and to protect the family. Now, she understood just how much her father had loved her. But before she could process her grief, the monster burst into their house. Evelyn immediately aimed her shotgun at it, standing her ground despite the fear racing through her veins. She knew the bullets wouldn't be strong enough to pierce the creature's thick, armored skin. It would barely make a difference. Death felt inevitable. Just as the monster prepared to strike, Regan suddenly felt a sharp pain in her ears. At the same time, the monster started thrashing violently, as if something was tormenting it. Regan quickly realized that whenever she experienced that ear-piercing pain, the creature also reacted, but far more intensely. It clicked. The cochlear implant her father had designed, his final invention, was somehow connected to the creature's weakness. Remembering her father's research notes, she understood everything. The implant emitted a high-frequency sound that the monsters couldn't tolerate. Every time they came near, the frequency triggered pain in both her and the creature, forcing it to retreat. Knowing this, Regan quickly increased the power level on her implant. The high-pitched sound grew sharper and stronger, causing the monster to scream in agony. It was as if needles were piercing through its entire body. Evelyn immediately realized what was happening. Her daughter's device was the key to defeating them. But the sound was also hurting Regan, making her wince in pain. Thinking fast, she connected the implant to a nearby microphone, amplifying the signal through the speakers. Piercing sound waves became deafening. The monster convulsed violently. Its armored skull began to split open, exposing its fleshy head. Without hesitation, Evelyn aimed the shotgun and fired straight into its open mouth. The blast echoed through the room, and the creature's head exploded like a balloon. The monster collapsed to the ground, finally dead. Their fight wasn't over yet. The gunshot's echo had drawn the attention of two more creatures from the nearby area. Evelyn and Regan exchanged a look. They both knew what had to be done. Regan cranked the microphone volume to maximum, unleashing the same powerful frequency, while Evelyn reloaded her gun and aimed toward the door, ready to face the next attack. And with that, their story came to a close. A mother and daughter standing side by side, armed with courage, love, and the knowledge of their enemy's greatest weakness. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales.